The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's November the 11th, 2024. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, with our illustrious managing editor, Matt Shodell, the talk of the city of Atlanta this weekend as we discuss the news of the day. And Matt, I'm going to jump right in. We're not even going to say we're presented by anybody today. We're going right to the nitty gritty. There is so much on the mind of the Canes fan. Man, like, I'm blown by the reaction coming out of that game the other day. You know, before the season, we talked about, you know, hopefully this could be a 10-win team. So some people said 9, some people said 10. I think I said 10. And they were 9-0 and got outplayed by Georgia Tech on Saturday. Had a lot of unfortunate things go on during the course of the game that impacted the result, and took an L, a disappointing L, because it kind of changes the face of a lot of things here this season. But then after the game, the Pitt Panthers lost to Virginia, which basically put Miami back to where they were before the game against Georgia Tech. So everything's okay in the land of the Canes, and the football program came back from Atlanta, and they're regrouping. They're licking their wounds. And look, Georgia's lost twice this year. You could go down the list of teams that have taken L's. Almost everybody's taking a loss now. I haven't looked to see how many unbeaten teams are left yet. There's not many, right, Matt? Just a handful. But the point is that over a 12-game season, teams are not going to likely win every single game. You can look back through history, and it doesn't excuse some of the things that we saw on the field in Atlanta on Saturday. Very, very disappointing run defense. 271 yards gained by Georgia Tech, just pounding the crap out of the defense at the line of scrimmage and getting out on the perimeter. They really were doing just about whatever they wanted in the run game for the most part. It was kind of stunning, to be honest. But then when they did need to throw the football, they were able to hit their passes. The guys were turned loose. I mean, Lance Guidry wasn't even blitzing. And there were like guys wide open in the Miami secondary. And yeah, it's distressing. And I get how people are feeling about it. And I'm not sure that at this point that it's going to change very much this season. But I feel pretty confident that defensive back is going to be a very high priority spot as Miami looks forward here, finishes out recruiting, and goes into the transfer portal as well. They clearly need a lot of help on the defensive side of the ball. And so Matt, I'm going to just turn this over to you and let you pontificate on all these different subjects. But I do want to tell everybody that this weekend in Atlanta was pretty interesting. You know, I mean, I'm at the game, and everyone's coming up to me on Saturday outside of Bobby Dodd Stadium and asking me, how is Matt's stone crab fishing going? Okay, and there's a picture. I haven't loaded it up here. It's the typical Matt fishing for stone crabs picture. So it's really not a huge deal. I could, you know, for those of you that want to envision it, I might have one saved from the past. But you know, it's Matt who went out Saturday morning, like we said on the last show, and basically slaughtered 43 stone crabs in Biscayne Bay, and came back with their claws and was in a celebratory mood about it. So those of you that were interested in Matt's fishing expedition, 43, man, that's a lot of stone crabs, Matt. But you know, you have your legion of followers that were interested in that. And then I was at the airport on Sunday morning coming back from Atlanta. Obviously a bunch of Canes fans on the flights to South Florida, so I had quite a few of them on my plane. And everyone's saying to me, man, is Matt going to be negative tomorrow morning? Like, you know, figuring that if there was anything you had to be negative about, it was this performance in Atlanta on Saturday. Matt, it included leaving a minimum of at least 7 points on the field, not taking 2 field goals and an extra point in a 5-point loss. Just, the latest example, I'm just going to say one last thing. There's two things I hate. I hate prevent defense and I hate analytics. I think those two things kill coaches and lead to so many extra defeats that they don't have to take. And this was a perfect example. If you just take those field goals and that extra point, you are up by 2 when Cam Ward's trying to play Superman again at the end of the game instead of down. So all that said, Matt, tough day for the defense, tough day for the coaches, tough day for the Canes fans. What say thou?
I mean, I stopped listening right when you said good morning CaneSport because it should have been bad morning CaneSport. But as it pertains to Crabs, again, I mean, just your attention to detail, math skills, and actual fact checking are off the charts terrible. Because if
I got was that you butchered 43 crabs.
That's not. I said that. That's what you said.
That was the report I received.
The report you received was I said I got 43 claws. Each crab has 2 claws. You don't kill the crabs because they grow back their claws. So everything about your report, I mean, if this is your reporting as a journalist, then you may as well say Kamala Harris won the election because it's about as equally off as that statement would be. And you know what? This loss very much mirrored politics. And this is not a Kamala versus Donald, Republican versus Democrat, anything. This is a fact. Social media has messed up this country and messed up college football and messed up sports in general so much. The underreactions and overreactions are so exaggerated to every single little detail. I mean, my wife's, for whatever bizarre reason, and big New York Giants fan. I know the reason, okay? She was the 3rd daughter of her father, who was a big New York Giants fan, and so he turned her into his son and made her go to all the games with him as a child. And so, of course, she's now a New York Giants fan. So I, being a good person, watched some of the game yesterday morning with her. They were playing in Germany, And at one point, Daniel Jones, Miami fans are probably can relate to this sometimes. He has, not necessarily this year, but in past years, Daniel Jones, they run, it's a 3rd and 1 play, and they run a flea flicker, and there's 2 guys wide open. I mean, beyond wide open, like nobody near them, down the field. Daniel Jones just stares at them and holds the ball and gets sacked. Okay. So then I decided I couldn't believe what I saw. A pro quarterback doing this. I know Duke's not a very good school. Obviously, the people who went there are not very smart. I understand that, and Daniel Jones exemplifies that. I go on Twitter just to look at the reactions, and I start reading to my wife just for the fun of it because I enjoy negative things and horrible plays, much more than positive plays and good things. I start reading a list of responses. All I do is type in Daniel Jones in the search bar. That's all I did. Type in Daniel Jones on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called now. And I start reading them. I read like 20 different ones, including Die Daniel Jones. That was actually one of them. And then I look at the timestamps. They were all within 14 seconds of me just doing the search. And this is what we've become as a society, is we're this reactionary force that no longer, like Gary Ferman, looks at facts, that no longer, like Gary Ferman, remembers the last game, the last 2 games, the last 22 years of failures. All people want to talk about is a final 2 minutes that took maybe 8 minutes in real time. Well, actually, it took way less than that. It took 50 seconds in real time for a fumble to happen. That cost Miami the game, potentially, if they could have driven for a touchdown. The 3.5 hours of the game wiped away an entire season worth of Miami undefeated play. And all of a sudden, we know the team's terrible. All of a sudden, we know that this is not the team that we thought it was. This team is exactly what we thought it was. They played against Georgia Tech the same way they played against Virginia Tech, the same way they played against Cal, the same way they played against, you name it. It's 4 different games. They played the exact same way, just this time at the end.
Same they played against Duke when they gave up a 28-3 run in the middle of the game. Yeah, I agree.
Just this time they happened to fumble at the end instead of score the touchdown. If Cam Ward doesn't fumble, if they go and get a touchdown, it's all of a sudden everything's fine again. Like, that's what I was trying to tell people over the last 6 weeks. Like, I kept saying this is an imperfect team that honestly is getting a little lucky. Like, they could easily have 2 or 3 losses and they just don't. And the 2017 team had the same problems. And at some point this week, we're going to compare both teams to show this is not the same team as the 2017 team at all.
Matt,
as a matter of fact, it's the inverse.
This loss Saturday was the Pitt loss in 2017.
Right.
Same thing. You're absolutely right. I can't believe I agree with you.
Well, no. That's not what I said. This is not. I said this is not the same team as the 2017 team. I said it's not. I didn't say
it is, but it's not.
No.
The victories were the same.
It's the opposite. The 2017 team had a bad offense and a good enough defense. This team has one of the nation's best offenses and a terrible defense. It's the opposite of that team. On top of that, there's not a Clemson team that's a national title contender. You got to play in the ACC title game. It's an easier path. There's not a great team.
Not because SMU matches up well with Miami's deficiencies.
I disagree 100%. I disagree 100%.
Every team
Miami plays is going to score points. We've been saying this. Well, I've been saying it. You said they're going to get fixed in the bye week. I've been saying this ever since we saw those first couple of ACC games. I don't think it's a secret anymore. Every team's going to score. Miami has to outscore them. And I think Miami's got a better chance of outscoring an SMU defense, than it does a Clemson 2017 defense. Like, I'm sorry. Clemson's 2017 defense was amazing. SMU's 2024 defense is nowhere near amazing. Okay, it's average at best. So you have a chance to outscore a team like that. So anyway, notwithstanding all of that, okay, yes, I'm still negative, but I'm no more negative today than I was a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, because I kept telling people, like, Miami's not playing anyone great. Miami has an imperfect team, and they just have to keep outscoring people. Did I think they were going to lose to Georgia Tech? Absolutely not. But not because Miami's so terrible, because Georgia Tech's not a good team, right? But Georgia Tech played probably its best game of the year, maybe along with the FSU game in the opener. And they had a great game plan running the ball. They couldn't even pass the ball. That's the sad thing for Miami's defense, right? And this is why Lance Guidry this might be his farewell song, because you literally couldn't come up with a scheme to stop a team where you knew the quarterback couldn't throw the ball because of a right shoulder injury, and you knew that by the second play of the first drive, and they had to bring in a freshman every time they wanted to throw the ball. So if the freshman's not in, they're running the ball. If the freshman's in, he's still probably running the ball. And they ran the ball down Miami's throats. They had no answer for the quarterback run. They had no answer for the runs around the edges, right? Because Tyler Barron kept on doing his best Jalen Phillips impersonation and just wanted sack, because the poor guy has been stuck at 4.5 sacks since game 3. It's in his head now. I need sacks. I want to be in the NFL. It's a disease. And if Miami can't fix that disease, get the guy out of the damn game, okay? He's got a disease where he will not stop the run anymore, and he just wants stats and sacks, man. And if you can't teach that guy that you got to play team football, then I'm sorry, you might be the most athletic player on the defense, but everyone sees what you're doing, and you're infecting everyone else, and you're out. And bring in somebody else. I don't care if it's Cole McConaughey. I don't care if it's Gary Ferman. You can't have selfish players playing football when you're 9-0 and trying to freaking make a team goal that Miami fans have been dying for 22 years.
Wow.
Now the good news, like Gary said, and it's not just him. There's other players.
I agree with everything you're saying.
There's other players that are playing selfish too, and it's got to just go by the wayside. It hasn't shown up as much until this game, honestly, and this game disturbed me tremendously. Not just for that, but in addition to the players, like, I'm not giving a pass to these coaches at all, and not just Lance Guidry. Mario Cristobal continues to make just dumbfounding mistakes. And like, if Georgia Tech had not gotten that first down at the very end to run out the clock, and yeah, they could have got a touchdown and won by 12, obviously. But if he had just stopped that play, it was a 3rd and whatever, right? 3rd and 7, whatever it was. If he stopped that play, Georgia Tech runs the clock down to 20 seconds. You know why? Because Mario Cristobal inexplicably thought there was a fake punt from Georgia Tech's own 30-yard line with Georgia Tech winning by, what were they by at that point? 12 points? Whatever it was? 11 points? Whatever it was. Or maybe it was even 5 points. I don't know. Whatever it was at that point, he's screaming. They show him on TV screaming, running on the sidelines. Oh, timeout. If they still had that timeout and had stopped that 3rd down play, they get the ball back with 1:30 left, down 5, right? Or sorry, if they would have kicked field goal, down 8, with 1:30 left, you need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to win. But instead, the clock would have gone down to 20 seconds, right? Or 30 seconds, whatever it's going to be. Much more difficult. And that's because he wasted that timeout. He wasted field goal opportunities. He kept going for fourth downs. And you mentioned the analytics, and I am totally for analytics, but with a caveat, you have to understand your opponent and you have to understand your own team. Georgia Tech is the best.
And you have to understand that you're on the road. That you're on the road. Like it's a big difference.
It's more the opponent.
If
you have a good enough offense and defense, you know, that's for one play. It's not a big deal.
Let me date myself here for a minute, and then you can go on. I had the absolute privilege, very early in my career, of covering Don Shula and the Miami Dolphins, and actually developed a little bit of a relationship with Coach Shula. And I remember it like yesterday. We talked about the difference between playing at home and playing on the road. And the one thing that he told me that has stuck with me through my entire career is that when you go on the road in football, you better like value points like they're fine diamonds, because you know you're already upside down because you're playing on the road, and you're more often than not going to be in very tight games when you're on the road, and you don't take that field goal in the second quarter, and then you don't get and it blows up on you because you don't get the first down. That is a game-changing occurrence and we saw this play out to the textbook form on Saturday, because there was another field goal that they could have taken later when it was 4th and 17, and then they went for 2 instead of taking an extra point. That's 7 points that were left out on the field by Miami in a game they lost by 5. Okay. So, you know, Mario has had success this year being aggressive, and I get it, but you're playing with percentages that are not so tilted in your favor when you're going for it all the time on 4th down. And when you're on the road like they were Saturday, like I am a firm believer, and I have been for many, many, many years, that you better take your points on the road. And when I saw them go for it on that, I think it was 4th and 3 in the second quarter, I immediately was. I mean, this isn't Monday Morning Quarterback. I was sitting next to one of the other writers, and I'm like, man, this is a mistake. You got to take a field goal here, and sure enough, they didn't get the first down, and you saw it just snowball through the whole game. And I feel bad for Mario. He's just like, he's being aggressive. He believes in being aggressive, and it's great. This wasn't a situation in a potential undefeated season where it bit him a little bit in the butt, and I feel bad for him. But I hope that he kind of realizes that maybe he needs to rethink those situations a little bit in the future, because between that and prevent defense at the end of games in the fourth quarter, those two things just kill coaches over and over again.
All right, so what I was trying to say, and again, you're completely wrong about everything, including I don't know what Monday morning quarterback is. Maybe we're watching an NFL game on Saturday, because it would be a Sunday morning quarterback, unless you want to wait 2 days.
Oh, I just
Sunday morning quarterback, not Monday morning. Anyway,
I see this over and over again.
I'm just messing with you. Anyway, the analytics. I'm a big believer in analytics, with the caveat. This is what I was trying to say before Gary wanted to talk about something that happened to him 55 years ago. Is you have to understand not just
your hair is grayer than mine, buddy.
You have to understand not just your team.
And it's also messier.
It wasn't gray until you started putting me on this stupid morning show, which I don't want to be on.
Gray, and it's messy.
I told you last show it was a bad haircut. It's not anything that I'm sleeping weird or anything like that, okay? It's not my fault.
Have you ever heard of gel?
The woman didn't like me clearly and did this to me. Nobody likes me. It's not my fault. People do this to me all the time.
Or something, will you?
I do have gel. I tried it and made my hair itchy. Do I need to go into it in more detail?
You look like the guy. You look like Doc in Back to the Future.
Thank you. He was a genius, just like me. Analytics are really good. Don't listen to Gary. They're actually excellent. The problem with analytics, and forget the on the road or at home, is you have to understand your team and the team you're playing. Georgia Tech is the 9th ranked third down conversion defense team in the country. For you to think you can go for 4 fourth downs against a team that is built to stop third down and fourth down conversions and do really specific things that you're not expecting in those situations. When you think, Mario the genius, after the game, we had a 4th and 3 play we knew was going to hit for a touchdown, and it just didn't work out. It didn't work out because Georgia Tech knows what you want to do sometimes, and they have ways to disrupt what you are trying to do. That's why they're a top 10 third down conversion defense in the country. So when you have a top third down conversion offense against a bad third down conversion defense, I go for fourth downs against them all day long, 4th and 1 to 4th and 3s. If you're down by 5, down by 12 in a tight game, especially when your defense can't stop anybody and you need more than 3 points. I get that. What I don't get is when you use analytics that are just general analytics. Remember, analytics are an average conglomerate of every game over all time and all outcomes, and it could be as close a margin as 51% says do this. And they're going to do it. Mario's going to do it every time because it says 51% of the time you're better off doing this in this situation instead of that. But that's in every single game throughout time that they've tracked. It's not saying in this specific offense against that specific defense you should do it. When that specific defense is top 10, when that specific defense is top 10 in the country against third and fourth down conversions, right? I'm lumping fourth downs in there because there's still a conversion down, a money down. The analytics flip. It's not 51 to 49 anymore. In fact, it might be 45% in favor for Miami or 40% in favor for Miami, and then you should kick the field goal. And that's what Mario continually fails to understand. He doesn't use timeouts wisely. It's why fans go crazy watching him as the head coach. It's because there's a game every damn year that he seems to lose because of a stupid decision that you can second guess really, really easily. And there was like 4 or 5 of them in the Georgia Tech game that if he had done a different path, maybe they come away with the win. And despite that, they still almost won. Very frustrating.
Made my case why I hate analytics, because analytics don't mean anything because the variables in an individual game change the analytics. Where you're playing. Are you home or on the road? What's the circumstances of the game?
The analytics are a base point to start from. Otherwise, you have no basis for deciding what to do anyway. You're just guessing otherwise. It's just like in baseball. If you have a batter coming up to the plate who's hitting 380 against this pitcher who's already in relief, and you could bring in another pitcher that hitter's hitting 180 against, you bring him in. Will it work out? Maybe, maybe not, but you know that the analytics are on your side.
That's different.
But in Mario's case, he knows the analytics are on his side, but he's not sure what hitter he's facing. He was facing a hitter who is stopping everybody in those situations really successfully at a high rate. And he still tried to do it with the same pitcher because his offense is the same pitcher. It's a bad analogy, but you understand it, hopefully the fans, better than Gary does. Anyway, the good news is Pitt lost. Miami still, all this did, and I have a comment about it this morning. All this did, and again, I wrote about this morning, is it makes the margin of error smaller, right? Because if Miami still beats Wake Forest and beats Syracuse, they're in the ACC title game against whoever, probably SMU, right? SMU would have to lose its last 2 games.
Yep.
And then if you win that, you have a playoff bye. The reason the margin of error got lower is not if they lose to Wake Forest or Syracuse, they still have a path to the ACC title game if that happens. And if they win that ACC title game, they still have a playoff bye because they're going to be one of the 4 top 25 teams. I mean, BYU would be the 4th if they stay undefeated. And then after that, it's like an AAC team or whatever.
By that point, they would be back firmly in the top 10. And yes, they would probably.
No, I'm saying if they lose to Syracuse or Wake Forest, they still have a chance to make the ACC title game and still get a bye is what I'm trying to say. They would not be in the top 10, but they might be 20th.
It's not every conference champion. It's
four conference champions ranked the highest get the bye, and the 4 would be BYU.
They wouldn't be. Yeah, they wouldn't be. If they lose
the second game, who's ahead of them? What conference? You tell me. Navy is Navy the one that's undefeated? That's the only one that could be ahead of them.
If they lose the second game,
is it Navy or Army? I get them confused because I know one's in the C and one's in the.
Matt, if they lose a second game, they're not going to be one of the 4 highest rated. They're not getting.
Understand how it works? There's only 2 other teams that could be ahead of them. There's only 6 conferences that are considered because the Pac whatever is gone. That's not even in consideration until 2026. So that's out. Okay, there's only 2 teams in that conference this year. Notre Dame's an independent. They're out. Okay. There's only 2 other teams that could be in them. One of them's Navy. Is Navy undefeated, or am I thinking of the wrong team? I keep asking this. You're ignoring me. Is it Navy or Army?
I got to look at the rank. I got to look.
Whichever it is. And then there's one other team that's in the other conference, the AAC or whatever, whichever the other conference is, and they already have a loss, and they play nobody either. They're not going to be ranked ahead of 2-loss Miami that won the conference championship in the ACC. So I disagree with Gary. I think if Miami even loses one of the final two games, wins the ACC title, they still get a bye, is my opinion. Again, the 4 highest ranked conference champions are automatic byes in the playoffs. If Miami is ranked to even maybe 20th at that point, 22nd at that point, after winning the ACC title, I still think they'll be ranked ahead of whoever that other team is. That it's in my story this morning, by the way, who the other team is. I just can't remember it, and I'm not looking it up because it's too early. That's a good one.
Army is still undefeated.
Army, that's the one. Okay. And then there's another team I wrote about in the story this morning. You can look at it. There's one other team that's in the picture, hypothetically, and that's it. And they already have a loss, and they're in a terrible conference and play nobody. And I'm not even sure they're even in the top 20 right now, or top 25 even. So regardless of that, okay, let's assume they beat Wake Forest, and let's assume that they beat Syracuse, right? Because that's the most likely scenario. Although, let's face it, either of those teams could beat Miami at this point, right? But let's assume they win those 2 games. And now let's assume they lose to SMU. That's when the no margin for error comes in, because at that point, Miami's being punished for having made the ACC title game, because I personally think that if 2 ACC teams make it, I don't see 3 making it. If 2 ACC teams make the playoffs, I think that at that point it becomes Clemson if Clemson beats Pittsburgh, and I think it's SMU. I think Miami is left out like FSU was left out of a much smaller playoff pool last year, because Miami will have lost 2 of its last 4 games. Miami will have lost in the ACC title game, and the media doesn't want to help Miami any, okay? So that's my personal opinion. That's where this loss hurts Miami. If Miami wins out through the ACC title game, this loss doesn't even mean a thing, because Miami still has a playoff bye. It won't matter. Miami will still be where it should have been. This game will be not even an asterisk on the radar, not even a blip.
I mean, everybody's losing. I mean, Oregon's undefeated, Indiana's undefeated, but something's going to give with these teams as we go down the stretch here and get into conference title games and things like that. I mean, there's not going to be very many undefeated teams by the time we get to December.
Right. And here, so I'm looking at, okay, so it's Army and then Boise State, right? Boise State's lost 1 game in the Mountain West. That's what it was, right? The AAC is Army. The Mountain West, if Boise State finishes, wins the conference, doesn't lose another game, I guess maybe they could be ahead of a 2-loss Miami. I mean, it's possible, but that would be the other one to keep an eye on. That could potentially knock Miami out if Miami lost in the regular season one of those final 2 games and then won the ACC title. It's hard to say, where those rankings would wind up. But where is Boise State right now in the poll, Gary? Do you know?
They are, I believe, 1 spot behind Miami. Yeah, they're ranked 13th. Miami's ranked 12th in both polls.
Yeah, so you know what? So that would be a problem. Yeah. So if Boise State runs the table, you're right. Okay, so I take it back. You're right. If Boise State runs the table, wins their conference, and Miami loses a regular season game and wins the ACC, then you're right. Boise State goes ahead of Miami, unless BYU loses a game.
Which would only mean that Miami has to play a first-round game. You have to play next
and if BYU loses the game, maybe they drop behind Miami. I mean, again, there's a lot of variables. We're talking about hypotheticals, which is super annoying. But the point is, Miami hasn't lost anything in terms of its goals are still all under its own control. It's just you lost some of the room for error. Well, a lot of the room for error. There is no room for error, really. And
you lost a little bit of the look test.
Well, they had already lost the look test, I would argue, before this, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's turn our attention forward. Okay. So we talked about the things that fell apart in the game, the run defense, the decisions to go for 3rd and 4th down. I mean, for 4th downs and leaving the points on the field, 7 points in a 5-point game. Obviously, decisions Mario would like to have back in retrospect. But I think if you asked him and he was faced with the same scenarios next Saturday, for example, he would make the exact same decisions. Okay. He's looking to be aggressive. What I would say is maybe just rethink it on the road, but he makes a lot of money to coach football and make those decisions, and I don't. So I could just lean back on my experience, and I have seen those situations blow up on coaches over and over and over again. And
well, wouldn't you agree though? He's more aggressive in his decisions than the average coach. It seems like he goes for every 4th and 1 to 4th and 3 and field goal range he'll ever find.
Yes, he is. He's relentless.
That's not normal what he does.
He believes in being aggressive, and I don't have any problem with being aggressive at all. Like but there's a time and a place for everything. And on the road when you're undefeated and playing for everything and your defense
and you have the best field goal kicker in the country, by the way. Let's not
and you're the
negate
best field
that.
goal kicker in the country, and your defense is getting the living crap beat out of them at the line of scrimmage. Georgia Tech is going to score points. You have to value points in that situation. But anyway, so the bottom line is it didn't work out Saturday. The Canes lost.
Didn't he hire somebody who's supposed to make these decisions for him, or am I imagining that?
He's got a staffer that has everything charted out. They've done a lot of research, and I think they consult on all the major decisions over the course of a game.
They can't. You know why? Because it's like this. Mario Cristobal's not saying, "Hey, staffer, I'm thinking about running down the sideline full speed right now to call a timeout because I think they might do a fake punt." What would be the repercussions of that? Because there's only 5 minutes left in the game.
No, not that.
He's not asking anybody
anything.
anything.
Go for two. When he chose to go for two, he would have consulted that guy.
Let me tell you. You want to know the name of the staffer? It's Alonzo Highsmith, because that guy has about as much say on time management as Alonzo Highsmith did on personnel decisions. Okay, they're not doing anything. Mario still does what he wants to do. He just wants to be able to say, "Oh yeah, we hired somebody." I mean, that's the truth.
All right, but anyway, so let's look forward now. Okay, what happened Saturday happened Saturday. It's not going to change. We can't rewind the clock. The Canes are now 9-1. They got Wake Forest coming in this Saturday, Matt. I would like to believe that with an open week, 2 weeks to prepare for Wake Forest, the anger of losing, that a highly motivated Miami team is going to show up in 12 days, 11, well, it'll be 11 days soon, but we'll show up to play Wake Forest and we'll put on a good showing in that game. Now,
you've taken stress tests before. This is the stress test for this team this year. Like whether this team passes the stress test on the treadmill or fails the stress test on the treadmill, we will find out very, very quickly against Wake Forest. Now, Wake Forest, they're not a very good team, right? They're 4-5. They just lost to somebody, right? Pretty high scoring game, but they're ranked, 94th in rushing offense, 61st in total offense, 65th in total in scoring offense. Defense, 120th in scoring defense, 131st, one of the worst teams allowing passing yards. Like, they are a bad team statistically.
Ole Miss beat them 40-6.
Okay. Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. But the most recent Wake Forest game was closer, right? It was against Cal.
They've been 10. In the ACC. They've been relatively competitive.
They just lost by 10 to Cal, 46-36. They can score some points here and there, but my point is this: if they don't blow out Wake Forest, if this is a close game at halftime, we'll know everything we need to know about this Miami team, and the answer will be this is still a mentally fragile program. This is not a team that has a Mario Cristobal culture, at least not the one he preaches and says he's building. And it's the same old mirage. Because at some point it has to look different. This is what we've been saying for 6 weeks. Like, why doesn't it look like it should? How come it's not a complete team win? Where's the perfect game? Gary kept saying the ceiling's way up here. The reason the ceiling's way up here is because they're playing way down here. Like, that's how you have a high ceiling, is because they're playing compared to their potential.
I don't believe the ceiling's way up here anymore. Saturday convinced me that there is no ceiling way up here.
All right. Well, that's really interesting to know now. Thank you for finally giving us that.
I finally come around to your level.
You're going to write a screaming headline. Gary Ferman now realizes the truth. Is that going to be the headline?
I see a Mario Cristobal team, a coach that believes in physicality as much as any coach in America, getting the crap kicked out of them the way they were getting the crap kicked out of them on Saturday. I mean, I just thought that was very distressing. I mean, it was. I understand why the fans are all up in arms, and they are. I mean, we did our weekly Q&A. It's on the website for those of you that haven't seen it yet. I mean, you go through that, like, you could just see the distress signals that are going on in the fan base, and it was understandable. I mean, they got the crap kicked out of them. So I don't know that the bar is way up here anymore. I think that we are now 10 games into this thing, and this team is what it is. I've come around to Matt's way of thinking, and it's going to be life or death. Pretty much. Hopefully they beat the crap out of Wake Forest the way they got the crap beat out of them. But when you go to the Carrier Dome against Syracuse, when you go to Charlotte, hopefully to play in the ACC title game, when you get into the playoffs and start playing better teams, it's very obvious now Miami is going to be life or death to win these football games, and they will stand on their own 2 feet, like I say a lot. Anything can happen.
You know, it's interesting. Like I said to somebody towards the end of the game, it was early in the fourth quarter. I said, I already know what I thought Miami was still going to win, by the way. I said, I already know what the post-game message is going to be. Oh, when we were down by 12 points, we knew we were going to win by, 3 or whatever, or 2 or whatever it was, like, because we knew that we'd have 2 more possessions to get 2 more touchdowns. And, I'm sure somebody on the sideline, literally, Cam Ward or whoever it is, like, we're scoring 2 touchdowns the last 2 drives and we're going to win by whatever amount of points, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they do. And I think there was almost a sense of entitlement to it. Like when you, and again, you were at the game, I was watching on TV because I'm not special enough to go to the games with you when they're on the road, unless they're major games. And when you were watching the players on the TV, and again, I wasn't at the game, but all I could see was what was on TV, like, there seemed to be, you could either describe it as a quiet confidence or a disinterest. It was hard to tell which it was. My guess is it was a quiet confidence. I'm like, oh, this is like regular for us. It's just another day. To them, it was like going to Burger King and ordering a Whopper, except this time they gave him a Big Mac, Like, what the hell is this? This wasn't supposed to happen. So I think Miami players are in shock. I think Miami players are in disbelief because it almost was a God complex, and Cam Ward was God. And there was nothing Cam Ward could not do until that fumble. He was going to lead Miami to the promised land. He was Moses or God. You could take your pick. Buddha, you pick your religion. That's who he was until the fumble. And you know what? If not for that fumble, I was still a believer. I was in the Cam Ward religion camp. I was drinking the Kool-Aid, man. Like, I thought they were going to win until the fumble. I was like, they're going to win. They're going to win. They're going to win. And the shock that Miami fans felt, and the shock that Miami fans, and the disappointment they expressed to you on your amazing message board thread that said, hey, send me your questions. Great subject line, by the way. That comes from almost a religious zealot disbelief in what happened. Can you imagine finding out that your idol has fallen? That your God is a false prophet? Because, and maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. I know I am.
You are, but you know what?
That's how fans are taking it. They're acting like this is the end of the world. When I keep trying to tell people, at least this morning, like it doesn't mean anything as long as God's son, is that now Cam Ward? I don't know. Whoever you want to say Cam Ward is now, because he's not God anymore. So whoever Cam Ward is now, whatever deity you want to assign to him, all he has to do is keep winning the next 3 games, and this never mattered. It never mattered, except to tell us what we already knew, which is this is an imperfect team that will sometimes lose games to average teams. Are they going to win a national title this year? Probably not, but it would be really fun to try and get there and see if they can do it and maybe get a little bit lucky here and there, because other teams make mistakes too. Anything can happen.
It would have been nice to see them in the game. It still would be nice to see them have the chance.
Yeah, but here's the sad truth, and this comes back to the whole media thing. Let's say they blow out Wake Forest. Let's say they win at Syracuse even by 2 points, and let's say they beat SMU by a little bit, and then let's say they lose and are blown out in the first playoff game. Fans are going to be pissed again. Like they're going to be mad. They're going to be like, oh, fire everybody. Like, that's the society we live in. I would never want to be a coach, a college coach, even a high school coach of any kind in this day and age. It is so minute to minute, second to second. They forget everything good you've done. They forget everything.
Put a bomb to their coaching staff yesterday.
I mean,
they fired their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator.
I posted after the game. I said, just take the first thing I wrote, here's my thoughts off the game. The first sentence I wrote was, just take a breath. Because fans are so reactionary. Like, you need to just sort of take a step back, be a little bit objective. Don't be so angry as fans, and just see it for what it is. Like, is it so different than what we knew heading into the season? The record's probably better or about what even the most optimistic fan thought it would be right now. And the fact that Miami now still controls its own destiny, I mean, fans have a lot to be thankful for. I know it's not Thanksgiving yet. And I know fans are angry this morning and they want me to spew venom and hate and how terrible life is, because that's what I do. But like, not to that extreme. Like, they lost a game to a not great team. They had some really bad coaching decisions. Their defense, we already knew, was terrible. It wasn't a newfound fact that Georgia Tech uncovered something nobody else had shown yet.
But they got the crap kicked out.
The fans need to get over it a little bit and just hope this team can regroup over a bye week and come back against Wake Forest and look like a lot more together, at least on offense, because honestly, the offense, I hate to say the offense was the problem last game, but it was, because the offense has to win every game, and they did not win that game, right? We know the defense is not good, which puts the impetus, you can look it up, Gary, impetus, on the offense to score a lot of points, and they did not. So this game was lost because of the offense. Okay, everyone wants to blame the defense. We already knew the defense was bad. It was the offense's fault, people. Hello. The offense lost the game, not the terrible defense, because we knew the defense was terrible.
We didn't know they were that bad. I mean, they were getting physically crushed.
Well, we didn't know the run defense. I thought the run defense was going to be fine, and the pass defense would be the problem, but we knew the overall defense was terrible. Well, let's face it, we did know that for sure.
But not in the way that we saw Saturday. That
it looks slow. How does the linebackers look that slow trying to get to the edges and trying to fill gaps against the quarterback run? The linebacker play was just awful. And I noticed that, to Lance Guidry's credit, he tried to go with 3 linebackers because instead of essentially with one of the linebackers playing nickel, because he knew Georgia Tech was going to run. But like, even with that, they couldn't do anything. They moved Akeem Messidor to end to try and set the edge. Even with that, they couldn't. Like, you saw Lance Guidry trying to do some things, but those guys, like, I don't know how much Akeem Messidor was practicing at end this season. I know he did it last year. Jalen Alderman, I understand he had a lot of tackles, but he hasn't played a lot of reps this year. So, like, Lance Guidry tried to put in a lot of different things to stop the run, and it just looked like they didn't grasp it in the 1 week they had to understand how to stop what Georgia Tech does. And with Jamal Haynes out, mind you, and maybe Lance Guidry would, if he talked to us, which he won't this week because there's no availability. But if Jamal Haynes had stayed in the game, and I understand he had a 65-yard run and a touchdown just before he got hurt early in the game, but like, I have a feeling they were not expecting the small, speedy backs to play as much as they did. There was no adjustment for it. There was no way to stop those guys around the edges. Nothing Lance Guidry did worked against the run, and that's on him and on the players, but it's to me, it's mostly a scheme problem. Like, they were just totally unprepared. Georgia Tech didn't have its best running back, who's one of the best running backs in the ACC. Georgia Tech's starting quarterback, who had missed 2 games, barely came back for this game. He was in for half the game and couldn't throw a pass because of his right shoulder injury. And then a freshman quarterback played the other half of the game and threw like 14 passes or whatever, like nothing crazy, 12, 14 passes. And, the defense could not stop them on 5, 6, 7 drives of the game, whatever it was, which honestly, there's only one word for it. And that word is Guidry-like, which now stands for pathetic. If you look it up in the Matt Shodell dictionary, Guidry-like, as of now, is pathetic, and that needs to change. I want to have a new definition for Guidry-like, okay? I do not want that to be the definition, but he's only got 2 games left to prove it, because guess what? He will be gone if he doesn't. Like, he is on the.
You believe that, huh? I don't know.
Do you think Mario can keep him if this is one of the worst defenses Miami's seen in 20 years and cost them really what should be a playoff berth and a run into the playoffs, given the offense's ability? I mean, the defense is lost. Why would you keep a defensive coordinator when he can't explain things to a defense? I don't understand why would he stay, Gary? Why should he stay? I'm talking about the next 2 games go just as badly, which I think they will, by the way. I think the next 2 games, they will score points on us.
I think you need more data to make that
12 games isn't enough data. You need another season or 2?
You need a little more data on the why behind what's taking place.
Let's break this down.
There's so many things that be going on.
Let me
there's so much that can be. There's so many elements.
They have Ruben Bain. They have Akeem Messidor. They have Tyler Barron. Those are 3 NFL-level defensive linemen. Simeon Barrow, he got hurt, but he's an NFL-level defensive tackle. So you have 4 defensive linemen. Okay, 4 NFL level. Now, I'm not saying first rounders.
Says who? Who
Says
says
who?
they're NFL? Who says they're going to be NFL players?
Says me.
I don't know that that's
Francisco
necessarily.
Malignolo was projected as an early to mid-round draft pick until he's been terrible. Okay, so he has that ability. The other linebackers so far have not been impressive. Okay, you bring in, Mish Powell was successful at Washington. He started on a national championship game team. Okay, he's your safety now. Darryl Porter was really good last year in coverage on the boundary. Lance Guidry said, forget that. Let's put him at nickel until this last game. Darryl Porter's confidence is shot. He was bad again this game on the boundary. You have one of the best freshman cornerbacks in the country in O.J. Frederick. So I have just named 9 players on defense who are all actually excellent players. But Lance Guidry has managed to make them look mediocre. So you explain to me how much more data points you need to say if the next 2 games don't go Miami's way on defense that he should stay for another year.
Because you need to know the intricacies of the why. Why are the busts taking place? Are they taking place because the players aren't learning the system? Are the players not? Are they not putting their time in during the week to make sure they're on top of it? Huh? Well, just wait.
His fault if that's not the case.
Well, I mean, or like
you have repercussions if you're not studying enough.
The coaches under him doing a good enough job.
You don't study enough, you're benched. If you don't grasp the defense, you find somebody who does.
Well, are the coaches under him doing a good enough job with their position groups? There's so many different factors in all this that it's hard to predict how Mario Cristobal is looking at it from his lens.
Well, I will tell you this. Mario does not fire coaches, unfortunately. So if nobody wants to hire Lance Guidry,
he fired almost everybody he's hired since he got the job here.
He lets them find new jobs, is my point.
Well, yeah, right.
I don't know if Lance Guidry can find a new job after this. He might be stuck here.
All right, here's one analytic that we know because we've seen this over and over again through so many football seasons, that if you're going to be in life or death games in the ACC week after week after week after week, which Miami was in 2017, which Miami has been this year, that's the similarity. You're going to win some and you're going to lose some, okay? And Miami escaped against Virginia Tech. Miami escaped against Cal. Miami escaped against Duke, to a lesser degree Louisville. It went their way. Saturday it didn't. It caught up to them. But again, looking forward, it means nothing at this point because Miami still controls its own destiny, and now it's all about what are we going to see against Wake Forest? What are we going to see against Syracuse? Can they get to Charlotte again? And that's what it's all about. All right, let's move on, Matt. I think we've beaten this thing to death, and listen, everyone's very emotional about it.
Here you go. Okay, I'm looking up some of the mock drafts. Okay, so Simeon Barrow is ranked as an NFL draftee in the 2025 mock draft. Low down though, 181st overall. Okay, that's
he's small, he's undersized. It's going to be very hard.
So Ruben Bain, obviously, we can't project him out because he's not eligible, but he will be an NFL draft player.
Not playing the way he's playing right now. He
will be drafted. His skill set is off the chart.
Right now. He better move to defensive tackle. He cannot make it as a defensive end.
Okay.
In the NFL.
Akeem Messidor is projected anywhere from Akeem Messidor is projected in the draft 2025 anywhere from 110 overall to 142 overall, depending on
not the way he's playing this year. He needs to come back next year and be better, and I think he can be if he.
I don't disagree. But I'm just saying all I said is these guys are NFL level talents. I didn't say they're having NFL years. They don't look good in this defense. Like, I don't know how many ways to say it. All I said was they're NFL level talents that are obviously not doing well because the whole defense is doing terrible. Tyler Barron, you could find him ranked anywhere from 2nd round to the 4th round and 5th round. Like, all I said was these guys are NFL talent. You said, who's saying that? You? This is the conversation we literally had 2 minutes ago. I said they're all NFL level talents. You said, who's saying that? You? Now I'm giving you now I'm looking at the mock draft. I just gave you the numbers.
Tyler Barron, his stock is plummeting.
I understand. But at some point this year, they were considered to be good enough to be taken in the NFL draft. This defense has turned them into bad players. That's not my point is not that they're playing at an NFL level. My point is they have NFL ability. They're NFL level players who are severely underperforming in Lance Guidry's defense. That's my whole point.
If they're really NFL level players. I mean,
I can't do these circles.
I understand what you're
I don't
saying.
think so.
I just don't think that's what we're seeing. I don't feel like I'm seeing high NFL draft pick performances.
You're not.
Maybe it's
You're
all Lance.
not.
Maybe it's all
Breaking
Lance Guidry.
news.
Blame it
Breaking
all
news.
on Lance
You're
Guidry.
not seeing NFL first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round, sixth round.
Yeah.
You're not seeing NFL 50th round talent performing like that on the field. But these players are that level if they're coached right in the right defense. Like that's what the NFL people said in the mock draft.
If it makes everybody feel better, blame it all on Lance Guidry, and maybe it is all Lance Guidry's fault.
It's somebody's fault. If the player's good enough and they're not performing as good as they are, whose fault is it? I don't know who to blame.
Well, then you got to look at the coaches. Yeah, but we don't know that Tyler. We've never seen Tyler Barron be that beast that we think he was going to be, because you look at him and you're like, man, this guy's like the prototypical end. I mean, you know, we were expecting a massive season out of Tyler Barron, and he played very well in the Florida game. And he played very well against FAMU. And since then, he must have thought his season was over. He had 3.5 sacks in the first 2 games, had been playing well. I mean, maybe he thought his season was over. I don't know.
You are onto something which I've said privately for a while now, which is it makes sense to me logically, and I have no empirical evidence for this. Again, another word you can look up, Gary. But I do believe that some of these players who transfer for 1 year to go to the NFL, once they find a high level of success and get a lot of people talking about them and telling them they're going to be first rounders, their main priority becomes, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to be in weird situations where I don't know where everybody is. And they play slower, which actually can be more dangerous, but it's also much less effective. Some players do not do that. Cam Ward, for instance. But I'm convinced mentally there's a number of transfer players who underperform if they have strong starts to the season or really big games that get national notice, because they feel they've done what they needed to do to now get to their goal, for their family, for their lives, for their future money. And then their goal becomes, hey, I can't get hurt. I can't get hurt. If I get hurt, I'm going to go from the first round to the 8th round or not drafted. And that messes with them. And you can't convince me it's not true with a lot of these guys. And it feels like when a Tyler Barron, who was first in the country in sacks after 4 weeks, getting all these acclaim, hey, he's a first rounder, and then all of a sudden he's totally in the tank. You know, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, what could have happened? Unless he has an injury that's undisclosed, which is possible, I have no other explanation for it except for mental. You know, it doesn't make sense. He shouldn't have gotten worse, no matter what Lance Guidry did to him. And I know fans right now are out for Lance Guidry. Like, this is not Lance Guidry's fault. I don't think Lance Guidry is telling Tyler Barron that he shouldn't set the edge and that he should do this and should do that. Like, it just seems like, you know, sort of like what Cam Ward's doing. And, you know, Cam Ward, by the way, and I said this to you earlier in the year, I know fans probably don't like it, but I'll say it again. Whatever team takes him in the NFL draft, I feel he will be overvalued, especially if he's a first rounder, because what he's showing is this propensity to try and make plays on his own and not follow what the offense coordinator wants. And offense coordinators in the NFL hate that. Shannon Dawson
doing it way too much, and you're absolutely right. You know what happened at the game the other day? There were a couple scouts. I'm not going to say the team because I don't want to do that. But when Cam Ward had a couple bad series in a row, I think it was in the second quarter, the scouts from this particular team that were clearly there scouting him folded up their folders and went home.
He just freelances a lot.
And what you're saying is exactly right. You can't play like this in the NFL. Yeah,
but guess what? Sometimes it bites you in college too. Like the way he freelances, he will hold the ball when there's an open, check down to try and make a bigger play in certain situations, and that can get him into trouble. I mean, there was times where he spun and almost right into a defender, but luckily got away. But this is why he fumbled 46 times in 4 years before coming here, because he will try to do things that sometimes work out amazing. And he feels like he can do anything because he's so talented and so gifted.
Yes.
But, people yesterday were using the term with me, uncoachable. They were calling Cam Ward uncoachable to me. That's what they were saying to me. I'm not making this up, okay? Multiple people who I talk to who are fans of Miami say this guy looks uncoachable. And like for a quarterback to have that associated with him is a really, really bad word. But the reason they were saying it to me is because they see him holding the ball, and then scrambling constantly. And then in this game in particular, they happened to notice the plays weren't hitting when he did that. He was having trouble under pressure, getting the ball away, getting away from defenders. I found it particularly interesting, actually. This was, I think, the first game of the year. I'd have to go back to check all of them, where he had more pass plays that went to the boundaries on the left and right than up the middle. Typically, for Cam Ward to be effective, he's throwing the ball up the middle 60%, 70% of the time, because that's usually where his first read is. It's where his eyes are initially. And if he's not throwing up the middle, it means he's scrambling one way or the other and then throwing. That's typically when he throws his outs. Of course, he throws outs also, just straight plays, but not often, right? And so, when you see a lot of those plays that aren't up the middle anymore against opponents, keep track of those, because those are going to be games where Cam Ward is freelancing. And if those freelance plays go the wrong way, Miami will lose another game, whether it's SMU or Syracuse, not Wake Forest, or in the playoffs. Like, that's just what happens. So, I said it once before on the show, and I felt like I was going to get a lot of blowback from fans, and nobody even mentioned it, which I was surprised about in the message boards. So I'm bringing it up again. Like, it's a little troubling, but he's so damn good. And if you take that aspect out of his game, he's not so good. So that's why I said, even back then at that time, I said, you can't take it away. I said, if I'm Shannon Dawson, just let him keep doing it. Let him run the Cam Ward offense and not the Shannon Dawson offense, because it's been so good. And I don't think they can change that. I hope Shannon Dawson over the bye doesn't go up to Cam Ward and say, listen, Cam, look what happened when you freelanced. Look, you've got to run my offense. That would be the worst thing he can say. But I do want to point out that if Cam Ward can hit some of his quicker reads, his check downs, that would be beneficial. If somehow Shannon Dawson can impart that wisdom to Cam Ward and make him understand and believe it this week off this loss, and if this loss actually makes Cam Ward do that more, I think then this loss would be worth it, because I think that will make Cam Ward a better quarterback, a more system quarterback, with still the freelancing capabilities when he actually has to do it, instead of trying to do it and trying to create big plays, instead of taking what you already have in front of you. I think that would go a long way, because Cam Ward missed or decided not to throw to several open receivers on numerous plays that I just saw from the TV version. I'm sure you saw a lot more actually being up above live in the game, which is when it's actually easier to see that he's just not throwing to open guys and trying to do something different.
He misses them sometimes, in the frenetic nature of some of those plays. But all in all, obviously, he's having a great season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, insanely good season. Yeah.
Insanely good season. And, you're right. You got to let him be him and take the good with the bad. And, I'm not blaming that loss Saturday on Cam Ward. That's for damn sure. All right.
Are you blaming it on the offense or the defense?
I'm blaming it on both. It was a team. It was a team loss, including the coach.
I just like to blame the offense, because if you just blame the offense, it sounds more shocking. That's why I like to do that.
Yeah, but no,
blaming the offense when the defense is so terrible. Oh my God, my hair's on fire. That's what I go for. That's what I enjoy. That's what I live
They're
for.
all in it together. The coaches too, and Mario said that after the game, to his credit. He starts with himself and goes down to his staff. I guarantee you, Sunday was not a fun day in the office for everybody, and he blames the players last, which is good. That's what a coach is supposed to do. All right. Real quick, a few other things that are on the website this morning. Matt takes a look at the playoff picture and more. Make sure you check that out. The basketball team went to 2-0 on Sunday. We've got coverage of that. We spoke to Miami 2025 quarterback commit Luke Nickel. He was at the game on Saturday. We got his impressions of his live and in-person look at the Hurricanes, so you can check that out. Several other recruiting updates are there for you guys as well. I'm not gonna go through all of them one by one right now, but if you're into recruiting, you got a lot of stories there that you could check out, and we will be hitting recruiting hard this entire week. So we will have all kinds of stuff for you. Remember, 3 weeks till signing day, about 4 weeks till the opening of the portal. There's going to be a lot of activity. Miami's expecting to finish with a full class somewhere in the 23 to 25 player range. And then they're going to hit the portal, probably going to try to add another 8 to 10 players in the portal. And I think you're going to see there's a subplot of all this is there's going to be some tough decisions coming up here in a few weeks for guys on the current team who they're going to have to open up spots like they did last year. Brought in 41 new players this offseason. I think it'll be a little less this go round, probably more in the mid 30s, but there's going to have to be some spots opened up on this roster, and we'll start taking a look at that and trying to figure out who that might be. So it's that time of year. It's the new age of college football. So much for us to cover. If you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please come on over. Your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every single day to make your fan experience the best that it can be. So come get your subscriptions at CaneSport.com. And right now, if you're on YouTube, hit your subscribe and like buttons, because it does help us with the algorithms at YouTube in growing our audience. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you for starting out your day with us once again. I know the subject matter wasn't the most joyful this morning, but these were all conversations.
No ads today. This is fabulous.
No, I purposely
thank God
said that this is a no ad Monday, because just way too much to talk about.
I heard you say that. I didn't believe you, but I heard you say it.
No, I meant it. And not the most joyful of conversations, but topics that is on everybody's mind and had to be had. So for Matt, I'm Gary. We'll see you guys next time.